Hello, I'm Erk and welcome to another episode of Erk Pod. It is Wednesday, the 8th of October 2025, and in the background we have Newcastle Beach. And if I swing around this way, down there is the Newcastle Ocean Baths that we were at on the last episode. So let's go down and have a look. So what I've been trying to do lately is I'm looking for some balance. And what I found is that I need to be motivated sometimes, and sometimes the way to do that is by the day of the week. Now, of course, one of the ways that I'm motivated is the work roster, and the majority of the time I'm quite happy to go there. I'm doing early morning shifts at the moment and have been doing it for about a year, and that's because it suits me with hockey. I work the mornings, and then for the Australian Ice Hockey League in the winter, all the men's games are in the afternoon, and so that suits me fine, so I can go to work in the morning, have a nap if need be, and then go do my thing at the hockey in the afternoon. So the fact that I've got Saturdays and Sundays mapped out as well in terms of hockey, that's been a really good motivator as well. And so I'd either spend Saturday morning or Friday doing my preparation for the week, team list and that sort of thing. But then again, I thought I'd need a little bit more motivation with some of the other things, some of the more routine things that I need to do, and sometimes I basically stop myself from doing because I'm doing other things, because I'm concentrating on other things. So I've been doing it for a couple of weeks now, and long-term listeners to Erk Pod and my music shows will realise that I'm a fan of alliteration, and I'm a fan of different days of the week have different shows. For instance, Erk FM Metal Mondays was always on a Monday, and then there were lots of other things as well. Blast from the Past was always on Saturdays, for instance. and I always had music on Wednesdays and Fridays. So what I decided to do was to do that for other things as well. So for the last couple of weeks, what I've been doing on a Tuesday and a Thursday, that has been Tidy Tuesday and Tidy Thursday respectively, where I put a lot more emphasis into tidying up around the house. And on Wednesdays, which it's Wednesday today, is Wellness Wednesday. And so part of my wellness is producing content, part of it's going out and about, and just relaxation as well. So on this edition of Wellness Wednesday, I'm actually due to have a house inspection today. Every 6 months or so, because I'm renting, they just inspect the place to make sure that I'm doing all the right things, nothing's broken, etc. I've been waiting over 50 days for an answer about if I can upgrade my internet, but that's another story altogether. So I thought that I would come out today while that's going on, because they don't give you a time. They say sometime between 9 AM and 5 PM, and there's no need for me to be there. So what I'll do, sometimes I'm working, so I've got no choice, but today I do have a choice. And so my choice is not to sit around the house all day, but to be out here. So on Wednesdays, it is the closure day for the Newcastle Ocean Baths. And it's where the Newcastle Council, City of Newcastle, where they come in and do all the heavy cleaning, not only of the building but also of the ocean baths themselves. And that includes draining the water out, and then they'll refill it at the end of the day. Now, I've never been here when they've actually done it, and I've got really no idea how they do it or what that actually entails. But the sign there is quite clear. No entry, closed all day for cleaning. So what a lot of people will do is that they always close here on a Wednesday. Now, so you can't swim. I thought we might have been able to at least go in and have a look, but we can't. So what some people end up doing is that they know that the baths are closed on Wednesdays, so they may just go to a normal beach, or what they may do instead, and this really depends on the person and how long they've been here, etc. There is some sort of long-term rivalry between Newcastle and Merewether when it comes to this sort of thing. So some people will go down to the ocean baths at Merewether, which we'll head to later today, and then some people won't, because they don't want to go to Merewether, for instance, which really isn't that far. But what Newcastle, the City of Newcastle have to do, because they'll be held at pay, they'll never hear the end of it if they don't, is to make sure that the ocean baths at Merewether and at Newcastle, that they don't close on the same day. So Newcastle will close today, and it is closed today, and we'll go downstairs in a moment and we'll see what we can see. And then there'll be a similar sort of process at Merewether. As we'll see later, the buildings aren't as big at Merewether, but in some ways, if you're thinking of an ocean bath, and if you've seen pictures, it may well have been Merewether that you've actually seen the photos for, rather than Newcastle. So as I mentioned, Newcastle Ocean Baths here closes on a Wednesday. Merewether, which we'll also go to this afternoon, it closes on a Thursday. So the regulars know that sort of thing, so they could alternate between Newcastle and Merewether should they choose to. But the ocean baths at Newcastle are closed today, all day for cleaning. So this is probably as close as we'll get. They do drain the water out. I don't know exactly how that process works, but they do drain the pool. Drain the pool, so to speak. Water comes from the ocean, and at the end of the day, they turn some valves, I presume, and refill the water. So some fun facts that I'm learning along the way. The Newcastle Ocean Baths were opened in 1924. So last year it celebrated its centenary. There was a big event when that reopened after a couple of years of refurbishment. And in 1935, the Merewether Baths opened. So behind me is Canoe Pool, which is also an ocean bath right next to the Newcastle Ocean Bath. Doesn't necessarily have all the facilities, the walls, etc. But it is still an ocean bath. And some people do come here. It's very shallow, so it's pretty good for kids. And it's right between the Newcastle Ocean Baths and also Newcastle Beach, which we're on our way walking towards. So we're having a look at the difference between the canoe pool in the foreground and on the other side of the wall. There is a wall that you will be able to see basically at the waterline, and it shelters a lot of the waves. There are some waves coming through. We'll just go to the left and we'll watch this wave come in now. But the waves come in nowhere near as strong as they do on the other side of the wall. So this is a perfect spot for younger children and people who aren't as experienced at the beach. This would probably be my sort of beach, just to put my feet into and go for a walk and not be worried about falling into the ocean. So this is a part of a much longer walk that you can do around from the Cruising Yacht Club in Wickham, and you can go along here past Nobbys Beach, which we'll head to a little bit later on, past the Newcastle Ocean Baths, and we're coming up to Newcastle Beach. And then it extends where we're heading on later on. It goes towards Bar Beach, Dixon Beach and Merewether Beach. So it's a fairly long walk. You wouldn't necessarily want to do that all in one day. I know I certainly wouldn't. So when I was here on Saturday as a part of the new annual festival that we saw on the last episode, I rode my scooter here. So a top tip, if you're coming to a beach in and around Newcastle and you have a motorcycle or a scooter, there's lots of great free parking spaces for you, and they're usually pretty close to the entrances to the beach. So it's a nice place to come out for a ride. and then come out and enjoy the ocean and enjoy the water there. But when I first came to Newcastle, I was very surprised that a lot of the areas have free parking around the beaches, which surprised me a lot. I'm parked in a free, at no charge to me, 4-hour parking spot, which is sort of halfway between the Ocean Baths and Newcastle Beach. I would have thought that they would have tried to have got as much money out of people as possible and to keep the spaces ticking over. So it is a work day. However, it is also the tail end of the September school holidays. That's the middle of the second week. So there's a lot more young families and children than what would normally be the case on a work day. But it's a nice day at the moment, and it's going to get even better later on. So we're at Newcastle Beach. It's 10 a.m. It's 23 degrees Celsius outside. Hardly any wind, a lot less wind than there was the other day when I was here on Saturday. Expecting 29 or 30 degrees this afternoon, which is going to be fantastic, especially considering we're not into summer yet.
From this point, it was getting harder to do to camera pieces and also voiceover, so I've decided to do voiceover later. The flags that we're seeing at the moment on the main beach in Newcastle, this indicates the swimming area. So this is the most supervised section of the beach, and it indicates that there's a life-saving service present, lifeguards or lifesavers. Whereas this one, the red and yellow flag, this marks the end of that area with the to the left with the flag that we saw earlier. The black and white flag is the boundary of surfcraft riding area, so things such as bodyboards and surfboards, and so that's the boundary. And there's another flag of a similar type further down the beach where you can go in that area if you've got a surfboard, or if you've got a boogie board, a bodyboard, that sort of thing. So these all indicates that there's a life-saving presence available. If you see a yellow flag, and speaking of lifeguards, that's one of their all-terrain vehicles ready at a moment's notice, and we'll see one of those in action shortly. If you're at the beach and you see a yellow flag, that indicates that there's caution required and potential hazards, and that may be indeed signposted elsewhere. If there's a red and white flag in a similar way to the black and white flag that we saw earlier on the screen, that means to evacuate the water. and if there's a red flag, that means that there's no swimming. As we've seen, this is a beach update, which is rather hard to see. But there's an indication of the major flags that you will see there. Anyone who's seen or heard an Erk Pod episode before, who's been a regular listener or a regular viewer, knows that I like a sign. This is the lifeguard tower at Newcastle Beach, and so this is where the lifeguards will be observing the beach. It's where they coordinate their activities. Anyone who's seen a Bondi rescue will have a similar sort of view of that. And as I said, I love a sign. What can I say? There's very similar signs at most beaches around the Newcastle area, and each local council would have their own version of this particular sign that they have at their beaches. So the lifeguards, they are using their all-terrain vehicle to go around the beach. I noticed a little bit earlier that we may not have been able to see, and I actually saw them putting out the flags at the start of their shift. While they tend to use rescue boards, etc., a lot of the lifeguard units in the east coast of Australia at least, some of them are now using jet skis to help them get to the people in the water quicker. And there's helicopter services on standby, that sort of thing, to assist, as well as the normal paramedic services. So the lifeguards are there having a bit of a closer look in the area of the surfboard area. And this is a good overview of the Newcastle Beach area. If you've ever seen a V8 supercar race at Newcastle when they were held a few years ago now, you would often see this view.
So there's a quick look at Newcastle Beach. If you've ever seen a tram in Newcastle that says Newcastle Beach, that's where people are heading to, this beach right behind me. It's very popular with teenagers who go down there. It's probably the most easiest beach to get to in Newcastle by public transport. And at the place of employment, I often see them in droves, either heading towards the beach or coming back from the beach, especially in summer. So my plan now is to head around the corner basically to Nobbys Beach. Depending on what the car parking situation is like, I might not end up there, I might end up somewhere else. Let's see. The plan is Nobbys, let's see where we go. And welcome to Nobbys. I made it, I am here. And I found a parking spot pretty easy as well, which I was a little bit surprised about. So let's go and have a look at Nobbys.
So having a look at Nobbys Beach, the building in the foreground is the lifeguard room, or the lifeguard tower, and behind that is what we're seeing on screen now is the pavilion. So that's where people get changed, and there's also some function rooms, etc. in there. for the surf club as well. So if we have a look at Nobbys Beach, if we continue in that general direction around Foreshore Drive, we end up at Newcastle Beach. I'll often, when I'm going on the scooter ride that we showed a couple of episodes ago, going past several of the beaches, Nobbys Beach is actually the first beach that we'll come across when we're doing that ride, followed by the Newcastle Ocean Baths, and looking in the distance there at Nobbys Head, which I really haven't walked all the way up to yet. Maybe that's something that we'll do a little bit later on in summer, to have a look at that end in particular. Looking out towards the Pacific Ocean now, and there's a small body of water in front that's formed, which is very good for young kids and probably people like me who just want to get their feet wet but don't necessarily want to get wet. The City of Newcastle provides the lifeguard services, and there's a look at a lifeguard all-terrain vehicle again. And it's a nice beach. Some people have described Nobbys Beach as a good beach to come to if you're not necessarily experienced in the ocean, or if you're not necessarily a strong swimmer compared to some of the other beaches. There's certainly a lot of beach to go around. It's also very popular. It's often seen as more of a family beach. Having said that, it's a little bit more difficult to get to in relation to public transport. I was very lucky actually to get a parking spot where I did. So I was driving around for a couple of minutes trying to find a parking spot, and a parking spot opened up in a pretty good area. And it was a good morning just to sit back and watch the waves come in and out at Nobbys Beach, our second beach for the morning. By this time of the afternoon it was starting to heat up, so I was after some shelter. While I was in the shelter, I found out that the City of Newcastle website contains information about the beaches in their area and also some surfing condition updates. The City of Newcastle app features information for visitors and also for residents, including information about the beaches, but somewhat surprisingly, the live ratings that I'm about to read to you from their website isn't actually on the app that I could find. However, there's a lot of information for both tourists and resident alike to find out more about the services that the City of Newcastle provide. Going to the City of Newcastle website at the time of recording this episode was interesting to see what information was provided about the beaches and the current conditions. So even before leaving home, you could decide which beach is ideal for you. There's probably a lot more apps that do a similar sort of thing, and other websites as well. But at the particular time, I was using the City of Newcastle website, and in post-production, the app. Let's have a look at Nobbys Beach, Newcastle's highest profile beach. Nobbys Beach is a favoured swimming spot for family groups and those learning to surf. It is considered one of the safest swimming beaches within Newcastle. At the time of recording this episode, the swimming safety was 6 out of 10 based on the current wind and surf conditions at Nobbys Beach. Uncrowded, and a surf quality of 3 out of 10 at Nobbys Beach from the Newcastle website, City of Newcastle website. We're going to have a look at Newcastle Beaches, which is where we just were, in the heart of Newcastle's East End. Newcastle Beach is one of the most popular beaches that offers great board riding waves. Unfortunately, the swimming safety and the other statistics weren't available. It seemed fairly safe, it was uncrowded, and the surf quality was probably equal, if not a little bit better than Nobbys at the time of recording, but that wasn't publicly available. Having a look at Bar Beach, which is our next stop, offers ample free parking and stunning beaches of views of the beaches. Swimming safety, 5 out of 10 based on the current conditions. Great view from Bar Beach that we'll see very, very shortly. Uncrowded and a surf quality of 6 out of 10. Probably the best surf conditions that I saw. But then again, if you're looking for me for surf quality advice, you are listening and watching the wrong podcast and the wrong YouTube video. So I was hoping to get to Dixon Park and Merewether, which we'll talk about next, but unfortunately the parking was a little bit too difficult. So we'll feature those beaches on the next episode, but I will have a look at the surf quality, etc. that was recorded on the day. It was about lunchtime at the time that I tried to go to those beaches. Dixon Park is in the middle of the popular Bar Beach to Merewether Beach section, is a great spot for a swim and is also a good surfing location. 5 out of 10 swimming safety based on the wind and surf conditions. The beach was uncrowded, surf quality 4 out of 10. I wish they had a parking rating because for me, when I tried to find a spot, would have been 0. Merewether Beach is a favourite surf spot and is a national surfing reserve. You could also go to the Merewether Ocean Baths, but unfortunately these live statistics were unavailable. Parking for me, 0 out of 10. There didn't seem to be that many people on the beach though. Merewether Beach is a pretty good beach to get to by public transport on the Route 12 bus and also walking. On the next episode, I'll take the scooter to Merewether Beach, the Ocean Baths, and also Dixon Park Beach. It's certainly easier to get there via scooter compared to getting there by car. The walking track that I mentioned earlier between the Cruising Yacht Club in Wickham, around through Honeysuckle, passes Nobbys Beach, heads towards the Newcastle Ocean Baths, Newcastle Beach, around to Bar Beach, Dixon Park, and also Nobbys. If you do the walk between Nobbys and Newcastle Beach, it's a nice level walk, and there's plenty of opportunities to see that little bit of in-between section between the two beaches that at this stage I don't know too much about, but can be popular with the locals.
Oh, being under this cool tree is so nice. It is certainly heating up here just before lunchtime. I'm going to leave Nobbys with the next stop, possibly Bar Beach. See you then. Well, here I am. I'm in a car park. Probably the car park with the most spectacular view in Newcastle. Behind me is Bar Beach. When you're in your car looking for parking here at Bar Beach, which by the way is free of charge, you could be forgiven for thinking that this is a car parking spot. No, it's a lane so you can walk down to the beach. So this for me is my favourite beach in Newcastle. It's got a great view, even if you don't leave your car and stay in the car park. It's a very spectacular view from up top of the hill. You come down the hill into Bar Beach and it's a fantastic view. Part of the so-called Bavers Way have Bar Beach first, and then in the middle distance is Dixon Park, and then down the bottom, down to the expensive looking houses in the distance, that's Merewether. So if you were energetic enough, you could start walking here at Bar Beach, and then you could walk all the way via the sand behind me to Dixon Park, and then all the way around to Merewether. I'm certainly not that energetic. It's going to be hard enough for me to get back up the hill. That's a long walk, and there's absolutely nothing in the way apart from your own level of fitness stopping you from getting from here to down there. Well, that was certainly an effort to get up the hill. I'm not even halfway up the hill compared to what I could be if I was all the way down the back. Anyway, that's Bar Beach. Next, Dixon Park.
Well, the plan was to head towards Dixon Park and then also Merewether Beach and the Ocean Baths. However, the episode was getting a bit long at that point, but more importantly, because I was driving my van, it was hard at lunchtime to find parking spots at Dixon Park and then also at Merewether. So I've decided to end the episode at this point. It's the 1st of November 2025 as I record this, and I did rather enjoy recording this episode, and I will enjoy recording the episode that will be coming up soon at Dixon Beach, Merewether Beach and Merewether Ocean Baths to complete this particular series. There's more beaches on the City of Newcastle app that I haven't explored yet that I might also explore at a later date. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you enjoyed the Civic video behind the scenes tour, the Meet Me at the Baths live performance on the last episode, and this episode. Certainly been a little bit different for me, but I've enjoyed the results. I've been Erk Brook. Thanks for watching. Enjoy these bird sequences at Bar Beach to finish up. I'll see you next time. Ta-ta and farewell. Bye-bye for now.